we'll kind of touch on some of those later on in the video. But I wanted to start by talking about those important numbers that we need to know. So you'll see me look down just a little bit because they're fresh, hot off the presses, numbers that we've gotten for the month of March. So first thing is our closed sales have gone up 25%, which is a really, really good sign, right? So those are some numbers that have been struggling a bit. This market report overall is actually looking pretty good. When it comes to the actual median sale price, we're at 1.3 million, 1.310 to be exact. So that's really good. That's up 34% from where we were last year, which is remarkable, right? As we know from a sales side, due to the interest rates, last I checked, interest rates are currently at 6.94, you can call that 7%. And so that has definitely affected us, right? So it's good to see those sales up by 34%. So that's a plus. Then from an active inventory perspective, we are up from a year ago. So we're up 21%. We are currently sitting at 110. Ideally, we'd like that to come down, right? So we want more of those homes selling, right? So that, we can pass those on to buyers and have a nice, flow, right, of buying and selling happening in our housing market. So that is one thing that we hope will improve. 21% is not too crazy. That's let's say that's about 1 in every 5 homes, right? That is selling a little slower than expected. But the positive side of that is that 4 out of every 5 homes is still doing well. So that's a positive sign overall, even though we'd like it to be just a little bit better. Then from a volume perspective, so our prices are high, right? So naturally, when they sell, right, they're selling for more money than they were before, right, just a few years ago. So from a volume perspective, in the neighborhood of South Tampa, 33629 zip code, we're at 54.9 million, which is up 33% from a year ago. So one of the things that sometimes you may see is those numbers go down. We're still increasing in price, right? So that's what that tells us. That means that as we see with the active inventory, right? Some are still going to be a little bit more on the market, right? As buyers kind of wait on the sidelines, but unfortunately for those buyers, it doesn't look like it's a good time to wait on the sidelines, right? So of course, we got some interesting information from the Fed. Not really sure what will happen with our interest rates. I think a lot of people are counting on interest rates going down. Now, not so sure, right? We don't know exactly what we'll see there. So it's important to kind of look at the dollar volume, right, just to see how expensive, right, are our houses compared to last year. So what these numbers are telling us is that we are 33% more, right, in terms of the volume. So that's that. Then from a new listing standpoint, we are down. So sellers are going to have to become buyers, right? So naturally, that may make someone hold on to their home a little bit longer, right? Now there are some really awesome programs, things like the 2-to-1 buy down, things that can help the seller as we start to get some signs, right, that the interest rates may go down in the future, right? Now, when? That's a $1 million question. But as we start to see some of that, what we're seeing is that there are 46 new listings. That is down 16% from a year ago. So a year ago, we had 16% more listings on the market. Fair enough, right? And then in terms of the pending sales, we are actually down. So we have 32 in the zip code, the South Tampa zip code of 33629. But before we had 3% more, so it's not that big of a deal. I'd say we're pretty much on par. When I see numbers like that, that tells me that we're about the same overall. So that's your quick market update on what's happening within the South Tampa 33629 zip code. So now let's skip over and have a little bit of conversation about, what's going on in real estate. So the first thing that everybody wants to talk about is what's happening with NAR, right? There's a NAR settlement. What's going on with that? That took place. I think everybody wants to talk about it. Every realtor wants to talk about it. Every buyer wants to talk about it. Every seller wants to talk about it, right? Or at least that has been my experience. All my sellers, all my buyers, all my fellow realtors want to talk about it. I think we are doing a little bit better. If you've been under a rock and you haven't heard, there are some changes that are going to be coming to real estate as the result of a settlement. Pardon me. And so one of those deals with commission. There previously on the MLS, right, which is where realtors are able to place their listings to share with others that they're available. On the MLS, you previously were able to put $1 of commission all the way up to whatever percentage, right? And so now the change there is that it is going to allow you to put 0 commission, right? So $0 of commission. That literally is the change that everybody's so up in arms about. Initial thoughts on this. So I'll try to take it as impartially as possible, right? So I always want to make sure that I'm being fair to all sides. So from a seller perspective, I think a lot hasn't really changed. So I see a lot of people saying, oh, it's great for the seller, but it's bad for the buyer. Well, technically, the seller was always able to offer very little commission, right? Like I said, you could offer $1 before, literally. So you were always able to do that. I think it'll be interesting to see some of the decisions that get made, right, as this goes forth, because naturally, if I offer 0 commission, there are going to be some buyers that are not going to want to pay for their own realtor. So they will opt to not look at those homes. So when I say it could be a plus and a negative to the seller, that's what I mean there. Now we'll see, right? The market itself always determines the way these things are going to go. So if the market itself determines that the new normal is that nobody offers a buyer's commission, well then, hey, right? Those buyers will still have to purchase if they truly want to. And so it goes both ways, right? Because the seller themselves benefited from this. One of the things, so I talked about the seller. Now let me talk on the buyer side. So one of the things when everybody first found out, there are limitations, right, on the amount of concessions that can be given to a buyer. And so they're Fannie and Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac limits. And so a lot of folks were thinking that this would harm some of the buyers that we all like to think about, right? So for example, VA buyers, right? So a VA loan is one that is only available to a veteran, right? And so, yeah, so a lot of us were initially a bit concerned, wondering if, their limits, which are already tight, right, in terms of the things that they can pay for, that the veteran is allowed to pay for within the mortgage or within the loan process. We were a little worried about that, but it seems that they've done a good job. Now I've seen some clarifications that just came out late last week, I would say, from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that seem to be helping with that, right, and clarifying that. So I think we're good there. Now, how does it possibly hurt the buyer? So a lot of people don't know that if you go far enough back in real estate, it was optional, right? For a buyer, well, it still is optional for a buyer to have a realtor. Lots of buyers, because of the fact that they would have had to pay for it themselves. And by the way, you may hear my dogs. I have 2 dogs, love them, but sometimes they bark. But anyway, so lots of buyers opted to not pay for a realtor. And so they would go it alone. What that led to was buyers not being very well represented and in short, the court system having to figure it out right after there's some sort of a disagreement. So I think what a lot of realtors are immediately concerned about is, what happens with those buyers, right? Will they continue to secure representation? Will more people opt to go it alone, which is so dangerous when you think about all of the things, right, that can go wrong when it comes to purchasing a home, right? And it's just one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, right? So you could have bought a house 5 times, right? I was sitting down and talking to someone the other day, and they were saying, oh yeah, I've bought 5 homes so far. I feel pretty confident. And I started going over some of the little pieces of the contract and, where you could have some gotchas, right? And the response was, oh, wow, I had no idea, right? And so those are some of the things that I think a lot of us are worried about for the buyers. We hope that they will opt for representation, even if that means they need to fold it into their loan, whatever the case may be. We hope that will be the case, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And then the other people, so technically, we're not a part of the written paperwork transaction, but we are a part of the transaction, is your listing agent, right, who is the seller's agent, and your buyer's agent, who is the buyer's agent. So I'll start with the listing agent. So previously what would happen is, let's just say the commission, I'm going to make up, so we try not to talk commissions, right? Because all commissions are negotiable, but let's use a random one. So let's say the commission was, I'm going to go with a crazy number, 50%. That would never happen. Let's say the commission was 50%, right? What would typically happen is the seller would take the 50% and they would pay half of that to the buyer's agent, right? So the seller, I'm sorry, not the seller, the listing agent would take that 50% and they would pay half of that to the buyer's agent, right? So you call it the cooperating broker, right? And so, or the cooperating agent. And so that was previously what was done. And so now it will be interesting to see, will that number, so that 50%, will that now go down to a 25% possibly? Maybe. Will that stay at 50% and then the listing agent keeps it for themselves? Maybe. And then switching over to the buyer's agent side, what happens there, right? So will there be fewer buyer's agents? Will it become more difficult, right, to find somebody who is willing to aid a buyer in purchasing a home? What will happen in terms of being able to retain a good buyer's agent, right? So before, the buyer's agent was willing to work, knowing that they would get paid later on down the line. But now, maybe they will want a monthly consulting fee, or maybe they will be more picky about which buyers they represent. So that leads to some questions, right? So we have a few open questions on it. I think that kind of breaks it down, right? Kind of gives you the perspective of a few different sides. And just trying not to pick any sides there. And so we'll see what happens, right? At the end of the day, it's like they always say, Mr. Market, right, will determine, right? Mr. Market is what will make the decision. We can all speculate, but we'll see, right? Whichever way it goes, we will align, right, with that, and homes will still be bought and sold just like normal. So yeah, so those are the 2 topics that I wanted to come today and talk to you about. A little bit about what's going on with the NAR settlement, and then a little bit about what's going on with the local market, right? So just giving you guys a local market report. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, right? Kelly Knows Tampa Bay, at Kelly Knows Tampa Bay. You can find me at that both on YouTube here, Kelly Knows Tampa Bay. You can also find me at Kelly Knows Tampa Bay on Instagram. And you can also find me at Kelly Knows Tampa Bay on Facebook. So any of those work. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you need anything. And I look forward to speaking with you guys, and have a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.